From Lagos, Nigeria, this is News Central. I'm Felicity Ezewike. The top stories tonight. U.S. vows to hold Nigerian government accountable for failing to protect school children from jihadist and criminal abductions. Court jails Boko Haram leader for 20 years as trial of Asaru terrorist commanders is fixed for January 15, 2026. And President Donald Trump warned South Africa against issuing any declaration without U.S. at G20 summit in Johannesburg.
And in business, Nigeria's Civil Aviation Authority fines Qatar Airways 5 million naira as crackdown on airlines intensifies.
And in sports, Africa crowns best men and women's players of the year as 2025 CAF Awards hold in Rabat, Morocco.
Tonight begins now. Thank you for joining us. We begin tonight with the state of security in the country, which has sparked global outrage. Now, the United States has vowed to hold Nigerian government accountable over a series of attacks and abductions of school children across the country. Senator from Idaho, Jim Risch, says the Nigerian government has long failed to prevent school children from jihadist and criminal abductions. In a post on X, the lawmaker who chairs the U.S. Senate Foreign Relations Committee said students, particularly schoolgirls, remain at heightened risk of enslavement, conversion, and ransom. His comments come amid recent attacks and abductions in Nigeria. On Monday, gunmen attacked Government Girls Secondary School, Maga, in Kebbi State, where they kidnapped 25 female students and killed one staff. Meanwhile, UNICEF has called on the Nigerian government to secure the immediate release of abducted schoolgirls seized during an attack on Government Girls' School in the Maga community of Kebbi State. According to the organization, the incident underscores the ongoing vulnerabilities facing students and school personnel, despite Nigeria's endorsement of the Safe Schools Declaration in 2015. It's noted that learning environments must be protected and that accountability is essential for preventing further atrocities. We can confirm that Vice President Kashim Shettima has condemned the kidnap of 25 schoolgirls from a secondary school in Kebbi, which occurred on Monday, the 19th. The Vice President visited the community and conveyed the regret of President Bola Tinubu over the abduction of the girls, the school's principal, and the killing of Brigadier General Musa Ubar in a separate event in Maiduguri, Borno State. State House correspondent Bettina Uweli tells us more.
President's directive. The Vice President described the attack as an assault on the nation's collective conscience. He assured families that the federal government is deploying all instruments of state to rescue the girls and ensure those responsible face the full weight of justice.
When one child is taken, every home in this nation quits. When girls, in the safety of their classroom, are seized by criminals, our collective conscience is assaulted. And he has sent me to assure you that this is not a moment for politics. This grief transcends party lines, geography, and identity.
Senator Kashim Shettima also commended security agencies, community leaders, and the Kebbi State government for their solidarity and ongoing efforts. Governor Nasir Idris, in response, thanked President Tinubu for his swift intervention and expressed optimism that the abducted schoolgirls will soon be rescued.
And we know that the federal government is doing everything possible together with our security agencies to rescue these our daughters. And I rest my heart.
Authorities have reaffirmed that this tragedy will not be ignored and that the nation remains united until every child is safely reunited with her family. In Abuja, for News Central, Bettina Nwili.
And the latest from Kwara State, residents of Eruku, the community where terrorists on Tuesday attacked a church and killed 3 worshippers, have laid out their grievances. They accused police officers of firing tear gas during Tuesday's chaos, while the town's vigilance group was left stranded with no ammunition to defend the community. Eyewitnesses said that the Eruku Vigilante unit, already stretched thin, had nothing to fight with as armed attackers stormed the area. According to the residents, the lack of bullets left local security team unable to repel the assault, forcing many to flee into the bush for safety. Meanwhile, the Commissioner of Police Kwara State Command, CP Adekimi Ojo, has visited Eruku community for an on-the-spot assessment tour. Let's now turn to our correspondent, Jamil Mabai, who is tracking developments in Kebbi State, as well as Mono Balagbogbo, who has been on the ground in Kwara State since the Tuesday attack. Good to have you both on the news. I do wish it was on a different subject matter. Vice President Shatima not visiting the school, or has he visited the school? What update can you give to us?
You know, since yesterday, ever since the president directed that the vice president should visit Burning Kebbi to console and show sympathy to affected parents and the communities. So earlier this morning, most of the parents who were staying in Maga community thought the vice president will visit their school, but they were told they have to come down to Zuru local government, the Zuru Emirate, where the vice president in company of the governor will visit the Emir's palace in Zuru. But to their disappointment, after reaching Zuru, they were told that the vice president was no longer going to make it. So they had to go back to Maga, So it was later this evening, late afternoon, when the vice president arrived Kebbi. He couldn't even visit the Emirate of Zuru, in which Maga community is under the Zuru Emirate Council. So we were able to speak to some of the parents and the community. They were very disappointed. They were not happy, given the fact that this attack happened in Maga and their kids are still with the bandits with no hope in sight of rescuing them. But the presidency couldn't even afford, to visit the nearest local government close to where the
Jamil, so where exactly did the vice president deliver the message and the condolence of the president?
He just went straight to the state capital, which is Burning Kebbi, where he met the governor there, and he extends his condolences and sympathy, and that's what he did. From there, he then left for Abuja again. So to be frank, the people are not happy. They are really, really not happy with the body language from the presidency, given the fact that, they've been through a lot. At least, a word of, sympathy, consoling them will have gone a long way to the people believing that, okay, the government, the presidency...
Indeed, that would be something that would be expected. But there is another information that, let me just ask, can you confirm that the vice president indeed was the bearer of news that intelligence reports were not adequately utilized to prevent the kidnap of these girls?
No, it wasn't the vice president. It was the governor himself. I interviewed even the principal. She told me that the governor got the intelligence, prior to the attack. And he himself had to mobilize security personnel there, including the army. And when he was told that the army were inside the school, he asked them to take a picture with the student for him to have that confirmation. So after sending the picture, everything went well. Even the chief security officer, that, lost his life, during the abduction, had to tell the principal that she shouldn't bother, everything is under control because the military are there. Around 1 to 2 a.m., the military withdrew from the school. And immediately they withdrew, an hour, in less than 1 hour, that was when the bandits...
Jamil, just one for the road quickly. Did they tell why they left the premises? If they had that intelligence report, do you have any information in that regard? And also add to that, what is the current security situation around the school?
They couldn't give any reason for leaving the school. That was even the chief of army staff when he visited yesterday. He said they're going to look into the issue, and the officers involved will be held accountable. And as of today, when I left the MAGA community, there were in the morning, there was a military vehicle stationed there. But around 4 p.m. while we were leaving, there was no presence of military personnel anywhere at the school. They have all withdrawn, no vehicle there stationed.
All right, Jamil, just hang in there. Let me speak to Mono quickly. Mono, could you walk us through what the situation in Eruku looks like tonight after the governor and the commissioner of police visited today? Has anything changed on the ground?
Good evening, Felicity. Absolutely. Calm has been restored to that community, Eruku in Kwara State. Although for some of the residents, those I chatted with online and I spoke with, this is business as usual. When things like this happen, it's the same rhetoric. We will deploy more security operatives, and then when everything returns back to normal, things just go back to square one again. But for now, it's calm from all my sources in Kwara State.
So what are they saying? Are the security agencies giving any sort of information as to ongoing investigation? What is being done in that community now?
Absolutely. Hours ago, when the governor was in Eruku in that particular community, the governor promised that all those who were responsible for the killings and abductions will be brought to justice. So we'll keep on monitoring all the security deployments from the presidency. Over 900 military troops have been sent to Eruku to boost the security presence there and to also double up efforts to ensure that those abducted are rescued. Back to you, Felicity.
All right, Mono and Jamil, thank you very much for the updates. Please stay safe as you go about getting the information. You're watching tonight on News Central. A reminder of our top stories. U.S. vows to hold Nigerian government accountable for failing to protect school children from jihadist and criminal abductions. Court jails Boko Haram leader for 20 years as trial of Ansaru terrorist commanders is fixed for January 15, 2026. And President Donald Trump warns South Africa against issuing any declaration without U.S. at G20 summit in Johannesburg. Thank you for staying with us. Criticisms have continued to trail the number of delegates representing Nigeria at the ongoing climate summit in Brazil. According to the former presidential candidate of the Labour Party, Peter Obi, the 749-member delegation to COP30 is another stunning display of misplaced priority by President Bola Tinubu-led administration. Obi noted that China, a world power with a far larger economy and population, sent 789 delegates to the same event. He noted that while Nigeria needs to have a strong voice in global climate discussions, this spectacle comes at a heavy cost to the people, with about 150 million living in multi-dimensional poverty, struggling daily with food insecurity, inadequate health care, and limited access to basic services. For this conversation, we have Adewale Adebayo, former presidential candidate of the Social Democratic Party, SDP. Thank you for giving us your time. Nigeria appears to find itself in this situation. Our COP delegations are usually so big, and many say they don't know how that translates to gain for Nigeria. Let's begin from there.
I'm not want to criticize the numbers in absolute terms, because if you send 30-person delegation and they don't attend the meetings, they don't do their homework before going there, that 30 is a waste. And if you send 1,000 delegation of 1,000 people, and they attend all the stakeholder meetings, prepare their position. I've been in position before to organize international conferences in many parts of the world. I've been an organizer, advisor of international conferences for 2 decades now. And my feeling is not by the number of delegation, or the number of your delegation, but the quality of your delegation. If you prepare your paper, position paper, if you are engaging other stakeholders, if you are coming there to meet funders, you are interacting with funders, if you attend all the sessions that are relevant to your country's priorities, at the end of the day, if your contributions reflect in the communique and you make an impact, and that is what I, as a rapporteur of many international conferences, that's what I look out for. Of course, from the domestic point of view, before you can criticize the size of the delegation, you have to know who's paying for the delegation. Developing countries tend to have more sponsors paying for them. And when I was on the Board of Municipal Program for Africa, MDP, and AfriCities, we used to sponsor countries that, developing countries. We used to sponsor them, and we will not sponsor people from the European Union or any of the OECD countries. So you cannot just out of nowhere, without getting the details, start criticizing people who might be hardworking people, try to represent the country well.
All right, when you look at the cost-benefit ratio of participating in international fora like the COP conferences, how do we assess its strategic impact on domestic climate concerns and local climate policy?
First is your own knowledge of the subject matter. There's a tendency for one to make himself an expert on every subject. But in reality, there's no person who's an expert on every subject. So what every campaign or any party or anybody wants to do is to make sure that you have a specialist on your team who knows the subject matter, like the environment, who knows what happened right from Copenhagen up to here. I think the most radical of the COP meetings have been the one in Copenhagen. I remember because I was there and I monitored also from Morocco, because I was coordinating a program related to that from Morocco, coordinating African position. And what I see is that it's a place where you can learn methodologies, what other countries have done to better their environmental footprint. You can meet environmental entrepreneurs who have these new ideas on how to mitigate environmental issues and how to adapt to climate change. You can meet potential donors. You can meet partners.
Well, how many of this actually, I really want to take you on other national issues, but let's ask, how many of this actually translates to tangible climate positive action for Nigeria?
It's based on the efficiency, first based on the quality of the delegation, and if they're able to report back, and if the authority that sent them there, especially the government, if they're able to use the lessons to translate to policies, to implement these policies. So you cannot divorce that from the effectiveness or otherwise of the home government. If the home government is not effective, if it's wasteful, if it's dilatory, if it's not competent, even if you send a modest delegation there, whatever they come back with, will be useless. But if you have an efficient government, the kind of government that I emphasize to give to the country, a government that is nimble, that is quite smart, that understands the issues and has policy-ready programs, then you...
Well, I mean, there is the argument that, I mean, when you're not on the hot seat, you might have all the solutions. One would wonder, even before you get into there, Nigeria belongs to all of us. Is there something stopping you from pitching these ideas, these solutions to the current administration? Because if Nigeria succeeds, all of us succeed. That is one question. The other one, quickly, is to get your thoughts on what is happening across the country, particularly the two recent incidents. We have the Kebbi kidnap of the girls who were in school and the people who went to worship. Connect that as well to the comments by Trump and the reaction about genocide in Nigeria.
Okay, with respect to pitching any idea to the government, it's not my business to pitch idea to the government. We published a manifesto during the campaign. They know that our environment programs is better than theirs. They know that our environmental policy is stronger than theirs. It's not hidden. They can go there and copy. As a private citizen, I have done many programs, including for Nestria, for Ministry of Environment, as a lawyer, as an environmental lawyer. I've done a lot about the most important program that Nestria is running now was championed by me, the whole program and law and everything and the agreement written by me. So I've done enough as a private citizen with respect to that.
All right.
So it's up to them to be efficient. Now, the next thing to think about is that there are emerging issues in the country. We ran for office on the basis of farewell to poverty and insecurity. And it's unfortunate that poverty and insecurity persist because we elected the wrong government who have the wrong focus. So what we need to do now as a country is to understand that the safety and security of lives and property is number one. And we should not politicize it. And before the campaign begins very soon, and this thing becomes a political issue, there ought to be a consensus by all of us regarding how to keep our people safe. And we also need to understand that the international concern for the safety of our people can lead to crisis actors trying to spike up these attacks. You will have seen that it appears that the spate of attacks is suddenly rising because of what is going on with the international attention. And like all terrorists, they like to make their impact when the attention is on them.
I hate to interject, but we're really time pressed. There is another issue. If you can speak in 40 seconds, that would be really great. The recent fracas at the PDP headquarters, where we had different factions, and the implications for opposition in Nigeria.
Well, it's a lesson that PDP has always been a lawless party, even when they were in government, always rigging elections, inflating things, having multiple candidates from one party. The lesson they need to learn is that they need to put their house in order. They can't blame anyone for this. Their problem is an internal problem for them, ego, ambition, and all of that. And we will do all we can to intervene. Their new chairman is a very good friend of mine. We will do all we can. Very soon you will see that other political parties, we are going to go and start to talk to them so that they can at least put their house in order, because Nigeria needs a diversified political environment.
I certainly
PDP
hope to be
responsible for PDP.
I certainly hope to read that news where there is a convergence of all the political parties for one goal. Thank you very much for obliging us tonight.
You're welcome. Thank you. God bless.
Still ahead, ex-Treasury boss Summers resigns from OpenAI after being named in Epstein files. Details of this and more in a moment. Let's bring you more security reports. President Bola Tinubu has postponed his trips to South Africa and Angola to focus on trending security issues in Nigeria. He is awaiting further reports on the kidnapping of schoolgirls in Kebbi State and the attack on worshippers at Christ Apostolic Church in Eruku, Kwara State. While responding to the Kwara State governor's request, Tinubu has ordered extra military and police personnel to be deployed to Eruku and the Ekiti local government area to tackle bandit attacks. Vice President Kashim Shettima is in Kebbi and is expected to give feedback on the situation. The president insists that security agencies will do everything possible to safely rescue the 24 abducted schoolgirls. The Federal High Court in Abuja has adjourned to January the 15th, 2026, the commencement of the trial of two leaders of the Ansaru terror group, Mahmoud Usman and Abubakar Abba, who were arrested by the Department of State Services. The trial was adjourned after counsel to the defendants pleaded for more time to study the charges and assess the proof of evidence, which it told the court was still in DSS custody. The defense also requested that the suspects be transferred to a correctional facility to allow easier access for consultation. However, prosecution counsel from the Ministry of Justice, David Akaswe, opposed the request, insisting that the trial should begin since the witnesses were already in court, adding that the DSS has clear visitation protocols the defense must follow. Staying with court matters, the Federal High Court in Abuja has convicted Hussaini Isma'il, a Boko Haram commander known as Maitangaran, and sentenced him to 20 years in prison. Given the verdict on Tuesday, Emeka Nwite, the presiding judge, ruled that Isma'il was guilty of all 4 counts filed against him by the federal government. Although the cumulative sentence amounted to 75 years, 15 years on count 1 and 20 years on counts 2, 3, and 4. The judge ordered that the terms run concurrently from the date of Isma'il's arrest. Macro, small, and medium-scale enterprises, MSMEs, are a prominent feature in Nigeria's economy. However, despite their significant contribution to Nigeria's economic and social growth, experts at the Faith Foundation's 11th Policy Dialogue Series on Entrepreneurship believe the sector remains unrecognized by the government. News Center's Omolola Ololade attended the dialogue series and now reports.
Micro, small and medium enterprises constitute 95% to 98% of all businesses, generating 50% of Nigeria's GDP, while creating 60 to 70% of all jobs. In spite of these contributions, MSMEs continue to grapple with diverse challenges. This situation informed the business conference organized by Faith Foundation with the theme From Enterprise to Industry, unlocking MSME potential for Nigeria's industrialization to address issues while preferring solutions to move the sector forward.
Policy is important. If an entrepreneur has a good seed, a good product that becomes a good business, if the policy environment is not conducive, you will get a stunted tree. You won't get the fruits that you should get. And our own focus is to make sure that for high growth potential micro, small, and medium enterprises, they meet the highest level of business growth and potential that they can.
Industrialization policy structure and its impact on MSMEs remain the focal point of discussion at the conference, focusing on the urgent need to create a paradigm shift necessary to move MSME from an enterprise sector to an entire industry.
It's for people who contribute so hugely to job creation, for people who contribute close about 47% to Nigeria's GDP. I think that it's only important and it's only just necessary that there should be a continuing focus and attention to them. I mean, it's important that we all realize that the journey to our industrial growth, our industrial future, lies in how well the MSMEs perform.
From entrepreneurship, you move to industry. And many different options were discussed on in which sector should you move to industry. And I keep on saying that Nigeria needs a green revolution. Nigeria's agricultural production needs to be put on a much higher level, professional level, with higher yields and mechanization than it is at the moment, simply to feed the population and also, if you want, to export.
Entrepreneurs present at the event shared their major takeaways from the robust conversation while hoping to leverage some of the ideas in moving their business forward.
Something that I also found very interesting was the fact that youth entrepreneurs actually make use of digital tools to improve their businesses more. And that, for me, that's leverage for my own organization, because, I mean, practically speaking, engage more younger people to work with me in my organization so that we can be more effective.
The consensus by entrepreneurs and policymakers was for Nigerian entrepreneurs, particularly MSMEs, to transit from a hustle state to a productive and competitive one. In Lagos, for News Central, Omolola Ololade.
Outside our shores, the U.S. formally warned South Africa against pushing for a joint statement at this weekend's Group of 20 summit in Johannesburg that the Trump administration is boycotting. The diplomatic standoff is particularly awkward, given it's first time the continent is hosting a G20 and South African President Cyril Ramaphosa is passing the baton to U.S. President Donald Trump at the end of this year. Tensions between the two men came to a head at an Oval Office meeting in May when Ramaphosa said had to endure a dressing down in front of the cameras. Trump escalated the disagreement further by saying he wouldn't attend the summit and followed up with a complete boycott of the event. And one of our lead stories tonight, former U.S. Treasury Secretary Larry Summers has resigned from the OpenAI board. This is coming days after Congress released documents that showed Summers shared a close relationship with the late convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. Summers, also a former president of Harvard University, said he would step back from all public commitments, adding that the move was to allow him to rebuild trust and repair relationships with the people closest to him. Summers has been under fire after the U.S. House of Oversight Committee released documents detailing an ongoing correspondence between Summers and Epstein.
This segment is brought to you by MoneyPoint.
The Nigeria Civil Aviation Authority has fined Qatar Airways 5 million naira for consumer protection violations, marking the 7th airline penalized in 2025. The sanction follows allegations that the carrier treated Nigerian passengers with contempt and breached aviation consumer protection rules. Michael Achimogu, NCAA's Director of Public Affairs and Consumer Protection, announced the fine in a post on X, noting that additional investigation letters have been issued and could result in further penalties. The NCAA has recently intensified its enforcement drive with Air Peace, ARIC, Aero Contractors, Ethiopian Airlines, Royal Air Maroc, and Kenya Airways also sanctioned for infractions ranging from delayed refunds to mishandled baggage and flight disruptions. Labour Congress President Joe Ajaero has urged African governments to halt the rising intimidation, arrests and state-backed attacks on labour leaders, saying the trend threatens democracy and weakens public service delivery. Speaking at the 14th PSI Africa and Arab Countries Regional Conference in Accra, Ajaero condemned the growing use of state violence, political interference and union takeovers as tools to suppress workers' rights. He cited incidents in Nigeria, including invasions of NLC offices and attempts to impose government-backed leaders, as well as the hijack of labor centers in Guinea-Bissau. Ajaero warned that such practices undermine democratic governance and violate fundamental labor freedoms. We'll take a short break, and when we get back, we'll be moving on to the stock market report. Please do stay with us. It was a cautious day on the NGX as the all-share index dipped by 0.23% and closed at 144,654.74 basis points. Now, that's the kind of small slide that feels less like a market panic and more like the bulls simply stretching their legs. Market capitalization also settled at 92.01 trillion naira, signaling a mildly risk-off mood among investors. Whether this is just a midweek wobble or the start of a deeper rethink is what traders will be watching closely as the session unfolds. Now let's take a look at the sectoral performance. Now, sector performance didn't help much either. Banking and insurance stocks both took noticeable hits, and now banking closed at 1.22%, and that was in the red. Insurance was also in the red, closing at 1.35%. Oil and gas equally took a hit, closing at 0.18%. Consumer goods, now that managed to take, a little bit of a bump today by 0.09%. And industrial goods decided that, I'm going to remain where I am today. Well, that is all for the stock market report. Nothing dramatic, just enough to keep investors alert, with sentiments shifting and the traders weighing their next moves. Tomorrow's session will reveal whether the market finds its balance or keeps testing the brakes. Well, that's all on Business Tonight. My name is Chamun Dabeng.
Welcome to Sports Update. I'm Favor Itua. Super Falcons goalkeeper Chiamaka Nnadozie was named the African Women's Goalkeeper of the Year for the third consecutive year at the CAF Awards held in Rabat today, beating Morocco's Khadija El Ramichi and South Africa's Andile Lamini to the prize. The award caps a memorable 2025 for the 24-year-old Brighton goalkeeper who was ranked 4th at the 2025 Yashin Trophy, won the Coupe de France Feminine with Paris FC, and also won with the Women's Africa Cup of Nations in July, where she recorded 4 clean sheets. The Super Falcons were also named Women's National Team of the Year after winning a record-extending 10th African title at the WAFCON. The team won the tournament, scoring 14 goals and conceding 4, highlighted by a remarkable comeback from 2 goals down to beat host Morocco 3-2 in the final. Meanwhile, Moroccan duo of Achraf Hakimi and Gizlani Chebak were named CAF Men and Women Player of the Year, respectively, edging out Nigerians Victor Osimhen and Rashidat Ajibade. Still talking football, Turkish club Galatasaray have confirmed that Victor Osimhen sustained a muscle injury in the Super Eagles' 4-3 penalty shootout defeat to DR Congo in a FIFA World Cup playoff match on Sunday. Osimhen was replaced by Akko Adams at halftime, with many unsure of what led to his substitution as Nigeria struggled in his absence. Galatasaray confirmed the forward underwent an MRI examination at the club's hospital on Wednesday and revealed in an official statement that he had a moderate level of strain with some bleeding in his left posterior muscle, and treatment has commenced. The 26-year-old missed tonight's CAF Awards in Rabat and is expected to miss Galatasaray's clash against Gençlerbirliği this weekend in the Turkish league. However, he is expected to be back in action before the Africa Cup of Nations, which kicks off on the 21st of December in Morocco. Nigeria drawn in Group C alongside Tanzania, Tunisia and Uganda. And now to the CAF Champions League. Rivers United have arrived in Egypt ahead of the CAF Champions League group stage opener against defending champions Pyramid FC. The encounter will take place at the 30,000 capacity 30th June Stadium in Cairo on Saturday, with kickoff set for 7 p.m. Nigerian time. This season marks Rivers United's first ever appearance in the Champions League group stage, and they will be hoping to begin their campaign on a positive note. Now, after the clash in Egypt, the Nigerian side will return home to face Moroccan giant RS Berkane in their second group match on Friday, 28 November at the Goswill Akpabio International Stadium in Uyo. And that wraps it up on Sports Update. Tonight continues with entertainment.
Kate is here with entertainment news. Hello, Kate.
Hi, Felicity. Good to see you. Thank you. Nice jacket as well. Tonight in the world of entertainment, actor Taye Aremoro has taken legal action against his colleague, Peggy Ovire, demanding a public apology and 100 million naira compensation over an alleged assault on a movie set. The incident reportedly occurred when Taye attempted to leave the set after his contracted working hours had expired, but Peggy's team blocked his car and deflated the tires. Now, Taye shared a viral video showing his injuries, including bleeding gums and lips, and accused Peggy and her crew of physical assault. However, Peggy denied these allegations, claiming that Taye was the aggressor and assaulted 2 crew members, including her driver, who suffered ear bleeding. But of course, CCTV footage later surfaced, appearing to contradict Peggy's account. Now, Taye's lawyers argue that his rights to personal liberty, movement, and dignity were breached, and is seeking damages for emotional trauma, psychological stress, and loss of earnings. Moving on, producer Brian Michael Cox has responded publicly to Usher's lawsuit over a failed restaurant deal, describing their 27-year friendship as fully intact. Usher claims he loaned Cox and his business partners $1.7 million to acquire a restaurant's property, but only $1 million has been repaid. Cox says he was a passive minority shareholder in the deal and denies orchestrating any wrongdoing. He added that despite the legal battle, his respect and bond with Usher remains strong, noting that he has learned a lot recently about being careful with who you choose to invest in business. My name is Kate Adiogun, and that does it on Entertainment News for tonight.
And that is all we have on tonight. Before we go, a quick reminder of our top stories. U.S. has vowed to hold Nigerian government accountable for failing to protect school children from jihadist and criminal abductions. The court has jailed Boko Haram leader for 20 years as trial of Atsaru terrorist commanders is fixed for January 15, 2026. We also brought you news that President Donald Trump has warned South Africa against issuing any declaration without U.S. at the G20 summit in Johannesburg. As always, we love your feedback. Please share them, and also eyewitness reports on the number showing now on your screen. Follow us on social media as well. We are at News Central TV. You can watch us live on DSTV channel 422, GoTV channel 23, Star Times channel 274, Avo TV, and on YouTube. Thank you very much for your kind attention. Have a good night rest.